Solar cells supercharged. The Perovskite revolution that's about to transform energy forever. Welcome to a world where solar panels are getting smarter, thinner, and way more efficient. I'm talking about Perovskite solar cells, and honestly, they might be the biggest energy breakthrough you haven't heard about yet. So stick around as we dive into the science, the numbers, and the mind-blowing potential of these crystalline powerhouses that are about to reshape how we capture the sun's energy. Let's start with a wild fact. Just 17 years ago, in 2009, Perovskite solar cells barely worked. Scientists achieved a measly 3% efficiency. 3%? That's like trying to fill a swimming pool with a leaky bucket, but here's where it gets crazy. Today, in 2026, we're looking at single-junction Perovskite cells hitting 26.7% efficiency. That's not just progress. That's a revolution compressed into less than 2 decades. For context, traditional silicon solar panels typically max out around 22%. We've basically leapfrogged an entire generation of solar technology. Now you might be wondering, what exactly makes Perovskite so special? Think of it as the Goldilocks material for capturing sunlight. Perovskites are crystalline compounds with a specific atomic structure that makes them absolutely brilliant at absorbing photons from the sun and converting them into electricity. They're lightweight, they're flexible. And unlike silicon, which requires expensive, energy-intensive manufacturing processes, perovskites can be made using relatively simple chemistry. Some can even be printed onto surfaces like ink. Imagine spraying solar cells onto your roof like paint. That's the kind of future we're talking about here. But the real game changer isn't just single-junction perovskite cells. It's what happens when you stack them with silicon. Enter the tandem cell, and this is where things get truly spectacular. A perovskite silicon tandem solar cell is essentially 2 cells in one. The perovskite layer sits on top, capturing the blue and ultraviolet light that silicon would normally waste. The silicon layer underneath captures the red and infrared light. Together, they harvest more of the solar spectrum than either material could alone, and the results are staggering. The current record for these tandem cells stands at 34.85% efficiency, set by Longi in April 2025. Think about that for a moment. We're talking about converting more than 1/3 of incoming sunlight into usable electricity. That's the kind of efficiency that could fundamentally reshape solar economics. But here's the thing about being on the cutting edge of technology. Breakthroughs come with challenges. For years, one of the biggest obstacles limiting perovskite performance was something most people have never heard of: the buried interface. Inside the device, there's a hidden layer where different materials meet, and this interface was riddled with tiny defects and voids. These microscopic imperfections acted like speed bumps for electrons, reducing efficiency and making the cells unstable. Researchers knew this was a problem, but solving it required thinking creatively about crystal growth itself. Enter the crystal solvate nanoseeds method. Just last month, on March 1st, 2026, researchers from the Chinese Academy of Sciences announced a breakthrough that directly addresses this problem. They developed something called CSV preceding, which uses crystal solvate nanoseeds to guide how crystals form at that critical buried interface. Think of it like coaching atoms to arrange themselves more neatly. During the heating process, the solvents are released in a controlled way, leaving behind a denser, smoother, more organized material. The result? A perovskite layer with far fewer defects and superior electronic properties. The numbers here are really impressive. They took their improved method and fabricated a large mini-module with an aperture area of almost 50 square centimeters. This isn't a tiny laboratory cell. This is a real-world-sized device, and it achieved 23.15% efficiency. Now here's the critical part. When you scale up solar cells from laboratory size to larger modules, you usually lose performance. It's called the scaling bottleneck, and it's been one of the biggest hurdles preventing perovskites from moving into commercial production. But with this new method, the efficiency drop was less than 3%. That's remarkable. That's production-ready remarkable. Meanwhile, researchers at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology have been tackling the scaling challenge from a different angle using vacuum deposition. They developed a multi-source co-evaporation recipe that creates ultra-high-quality perovskite films with grains aligned in a specific crystalline orientation. They used this approach to make perovskite silicon tandem cells with 27.2% efficiency on 1 square centimeter devices. Then, they tested them in the real world. In an outdoor trial in Italy, these cells maintained approximately 80% of their initial performance after 8 months of continuous operation under actual sunlight, rain, temperature fluctuations, and everything else nature throws at them. That's stability. That's proof that these cells can actually survive in the real world. But wait, there's more. Because durability isn't just about mechanical stress or outdoor weather. It's also about how these materials respond to extreme conditions. Researchers from universities across China, Germany, the UK, Spain, Italy, and Switzerland have been working on stabilizing perovskite cells using light-switchable molecules. The results are stunning. These stabilized cells retained over 95% of their initial performance and maintained approximately 27% efficiency even after 2 hours of continuous ultraviolet exposure at 65 degrees Celsius, followed by 600 temperature cycles ranging from -40 to +85 degrees Celsius. That's the kind of stress testing that would make most materials crumble. These cells survived it. Now, let's talk about what this means for the future. We're not just talking about laboratory achievements anymore. Companies like Oxford PV have already begun producing pilot shipments of perovskite silicon tandem modules for real-world testing. The U.S. Department of Energy is actively funding development programs with the explicit goal of bringing hybrid tandem technologies to commercial viability by 2026 and 2027. We're talking about the next year or two. This isn't some distant sci-fi dream. This is happening right now. The commercial advantages are enormous. Perovskite cells can be made into lightweight, thin, semi-transparent films. Imagine solar windows that let light through while generating electricity. Imagine flexible solar wraps that conform to curved surfaces. Imagine solar roofs that blend seamlessly with architectural materials. These aren't theoretical concepts. These are active areas of research and development right now. And here's the mind-blowing closing fact that ties everything together. When you combine the latest efficiency records, the manufacturing scalability breakthroughs, the environmental stability advances, and the commercial pilot programs all happening in 2026, you're looking at a technology that could potentially deliver solar power at costs competitive with fossil fuels within the next few years. We've gone from 3% efficiency in 2009 to 34% in 2025, and we've solved the major scaling and stability challenges that were blocking commercialization. That's not just progress. That's a fundamental transformation of global energy infrastructure happening right before our eyes. And it all started with a material that most people have never even heard of.